Isn't it interesting how for so long you thought you had to be tough, had to be serious, had to suppress your emotions, as if emotions were something to be feared? And yet, when you think about it now, wasn't it exhausting? Because what if, all along, the only thing standing in your way was the belief that emotions made you weak, when in reality, they were always the key to your strength? And isn't it strange how the moment you embrace what you once feared, it loses all its power over you? Who told you that being vulnerable meant being powerless? Who convinced you that feeling your emotions would destroy you? Who made you believe that proving yourself meant putting yourself in danger? Because now something inside you knows, deep down, that the more you connect with your emotions, the more powerful you become. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You don't have to act tough to be strong. You don't have to hide who you are to be respected. When you think about it now, what happens when you decide that from this moment forward, you're no longer someone who reacts to life, but someone who shapes it? Because the more you own your truth, the more you stand firm in your reality, the more respect you command. Isn't it interesting how people don't actually remember what you say? They remember your energy. They remember how you make them feel. They remember the power of your presence. And you begin to wonder, what happens when you let go of the fear? What happens when you stop apologizing for who you are? What happens when you realize you are already enough? Because the power of your influence is proportional to how well you can hold your version of reality. The stronger you stand in it, the stronger it shapes the world around you. The more you commit completely to your reality, the more others feel it. The more it becomes their reality too. And the more you double down on your truth, the more powerful you become. Because influence isn't about convincing. It's about being so certain that others start to believe it too. Isn't it interesting? At the moment you decide to stop doubting, the world stops doubting you. And perhaps you've noticed, the more you try to think faster, the more you feel like you're falling behind. But isn't it true that the greatest breakthroughs come in the moments of stillness? What happens when you decide to slow down and let your mind work for you instead of against you? Because the calmer you become, the sharper you think, the smarter you feel, and the more powerful your mind becomes. And the more you let go, the further you go. And as you sit with this feeling, as you let it sink in, you begin to wonder, what would it feel like to step into the most powerful version of yourself right now? And what happens when you decide that from this moment forward, you own your emotions instead of fearing them? You command your reality instead of reacting to it. You trust yourself completely instead of doubting. And maybe now you realize something powerful. You were never weak. You were never lost. You were never powerless. The only difference between then and now is that now you remember who the fuck you are. And doesn't that feel powerful? Because isn't it interesting how for so long you thought you had to be small, to be liked? How you believed that if you just stayed quiet, if you just played along, if you just fit into their world, then maybe, just maybe, you'd be safe. But now something inside you is waking up. And the more you think about it, the more you realize you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. Because now, you no longer let anyone treat you like shit. You no longer let anyone insult you. You stand up for yourself. You own your voice. You set your boundaries and command respect. And the stronger you stand, the more the world adjusts to you. Because for too long, you let people walk all over you. Because you didn't want to offend them. Because you didn't want to be disliked. Because some part of you thought, if I just bent a little more, the world would finally see my worth. But let me ask you something. Who decided that your comfort mattered less than theirs? Who told you that speaking your truth was dangerous? Who convinced you that their opinion was more important than your reality? Because here is what you now know. The moment you stop bending, the moment you stop twisting yourself to fit their expectation, the moment you start speaking your truth unapologetically, that's the moment they start respecting you. And isn't it interesting how easy it is to step into this power once you see the truth? And maybe, just maybe, there was a time when hiding was your safest option. Maybe as a child it made sense, because when you were small, the world felt big. When you were vulnerable, people took advantage, and so you built a wall to protect yourself. But that was then, and now something inside you is shifting, because now you understand that wall didn't just keep the bad out, it also kept the good out. And as you sit here now, you begin to wonder, what happens when you let that wall fall away? What happens when you decide that now is the time to reconnect? As you breathe in that realization, something inside you unlocks, because now you trust your emotions instead of fearing them. You express your truth instead of hiding it. You own your presence instead of shrinking. Isn't it strange? What once seemed impossible is now starting to feel inevitable. Because here's the truth. People don't remember what you say. They remember your energy. They remember how you make them feel. What happens when you decide that from this moment forward, you're the one who sets the tone? You're the one who controls the frame. You're the one who walks into a room and shifts the energy effortlessly. And the stronger you believe in yourself, the more others start to believe in you. Because the power of your influence is directly proportional to how well you can hold your version of reality. And the more you double down on your reality, the more others begin to feel it too. This is interesting, how easy it is to command respect when you stop seeking it. Maybe you noticed, the more you try to think faster, the more your mind races. The more you try to force the answers, the further away they feel. But what if the secret was in slowing down? Because when you stop racing, your mind unlocks more power. When you stop chasing, the insights come to you effortlessly. And the calmer you become, the sharper you think, the stronger your intuition becomes, the faster your mind works effortlessly. Because isn't it true that the greatest minds in history, they weren't the ones who thought harder, but the ones who thought differently? As you breathe that in, you begin to realize the more you let go, the further you go. And as you sit with this feeling, as you let it sink in, you begin to wonder, what would it feel like to step into the most powerful version of yourself right now? And what happens when you decide that from this moment forward, you own your emotions instead of fearing them? You command your reality instead of reacting to it. You trust yourself completely instead of doubting. And maybe now, you realize something powerful. You were never weak. You were never lost. You were never powerless. The only difference between then and now is that now you remember who the fuck you are. Doesn't that feel powerful?